This episode of the Eskimo Empire podcast is brought to you by Straight from the CPA's Mouth, a new podcast series created by the CPA Education Foundation and funded by the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center. Alberta's Chartered Professional Accountants, or CPAs, are experts on a wide range of topics and issues of interest to Albertans. Straight from the CPA's Mouth has discussions on topics important to you, from leadership skills and achieving career potential to financial literacy and how to make your tax refund bigger. Whether you're a university student, a new Albertan, or a parent, you'll find something of value in this unique podcast. You'll find Straight from the CPA's Mouth on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, or on the CPA Education Foundation's website at cpaalberta.ca/foundation. That's cpaalberta.ca/foundation. Enjoy the show.
Hey, fellas, we ain't gonna ever back down from nobody. I don't care who it is. This is a brotherhood. And if we stand strong together, we can't be denied. If one of us goes down, we have another, and another, and another that's ready to fight. So let's hit this field and bang them, bang them, bang them. Somebody, light me up.
Welcome to the Empire. It's the Eskimo Empire podcast.
This is Trevor Harris.
Hey, how you doing? This is number 58, Travis Bond.
This is Christoph Malumba Chimanga.
Hey there, this is your co-host, Kenny Stafford.
Hey, this is Ryan King.
And Calvin McCarty.
And you are listening to...
You're listening to the Eskimos Empire.
Listening to the Eskimo Empire podcast.
The Eskimo Empire podcast. Hope you guys enjoy listening.
Welcome back to the Turf District of the Eskimo Empire podcast, and we're a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. I'm Andrew, and I'm joined once again virtually by my good friend, superfan Mike.
Hey.
Nice. And Commissioner Kayla.
Hello.
You don't have any actions like Mike? I mean, we've stopped being the video podcast, but he's trying to...
Doppler boy.
I like grind my hands in my sides so I don't use them as much so people just can't understand the mystery until you come to the pod. The actual pod.
Yeah, then you actually get to see it. That's right.
Yeah.
We like to keep a little, like you said, keep a little mystery there.
You gotta.
How are you guys doing? How's the last couple of weeks? Both of you. Okay, good.
It's kind of tough. Sometimes it just feels like you're running on a treadmill or driving through Saskatchewan, same season. The scenery doesn't always change. It just feels like you're moving in place. I sit in the basement. I mean, to be fair, it's a nice basement.
It is. It's beautiful.
But it's just it's tougher. But on the plus side, for Jedi, she's able to go back to the office, so she's able to interact with some people, which for her is fantastic. She's a very people that have met her, she's a very out there type A kind of person. So getting to interact with people is great. They're very safe, of course, and our 8-year-old is also back in daycare.
Okay.
So he's able to play with kids his own, but they're, constantly taking his temperature and making sure they wash their hands 5 times an hour and things like that. So, cleanest 8-year-old's hands ever.
Yeah. No kidding.
And I sit at home. So,
Yeah, I get that. Well, I don't get that. Actually, I'm the opposite. I go to work and everybody else stays here. So that's the difference. What about you, Commissioner? What have you been doing?
Oh, I'm constantly getting memories of football games coming up on all my social media feeds.
Yeah.
I just popped on Instagram and it was 3 years ago today. It's the Eskimos. I'm I hate life right now. It's very painful.
Yeah.
I don't know how to handle. I'm not doing good. I'm very grumpy.
Yeah. Wow.
Well deserved.
Yeah, I totally get it, but you don't sound as grumpy. I mean, if that's grumpy, that's not bad.
This is Kayla level grumpy.
Okay, that's what it is.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh no, we're putting on a facade.
You
don't want to see that.
I was gonna say I've seen her after Labor Day games. I know this is a facade. Yeah. I'm
don't make me angry. You wouldn't like
as soon as I click off, it's like,
Again, one day.
Not a video pod.
Yeah, exactly. We got our new deck in, so I'm just waiting for some more sun so that we can sit on the back deck and enjoy a little bit of weather and be outside. So
exactly,
it was nice. We had a couple of nice days that we get back into a little bit of the walking there last week, so that was kind of nice. But it's like you said, Mike, it's a lot of treadmill time. You're just wow, same thing, samey.
Probably better for me if I had a treadmill, but
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to the video of you walking in place. That's good.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Let's get to our guests this week because we always love chatting with these guys. Of course, they're here to do our season preview. Oh, right. No, they're not here for the season preview. Just time to catch up with our good friends, the voices of the Eskimos, Morley Scott and Dave Campbell. How are you guys?
I'm doing great. I'm on the exact same treadmill. And
it's a lot earlier treadmill, though.
Yeah, over and over and over. Yeah, it's my days start at 4 a.m., but it's all right. I am doing morning sports on 6:30 CHED from the home office, and kind of got into routine and kind of settled in a little bit. Although I'm dying to go back to work and to actually talk to people without a computer screen being involved.
I get that. What about you, Dave?
Hey, good to be here. First of all. That treadmill is quite tready and milly.
Kind of both, yes.
Around and around. My treadmill's a little loud because it's there's a 4 and a 2-year-old involved, so they're always wanting daddy's attention. So that makes working from home rather interesting and challenging. But overall, it's been good though. I mean, I can't believe we're pretty much almost 3 months into this. I mean, it feels like it's been forever, and yet it's flown by at the same time. So, but yeah, just I'm with Kayla. I'm missing football big time as well, and I feel the same way as you do, Kayla. Looking at the memories, it's just like I want to smash my phone now and then go cry, and then I'll be okay. And then I can't smash my phone because no one's open. Well, I don't know if that's phase 1 or not yet. Maybe it'd be phase 7. I don't know, but. Yeah, it's been, it's been overall, I think the experience has been good. I do miss the office. I haven't been there since for work. I've been there a couple times to pick up equipment, but March 13th was my last day at work with everybody. So you miss that. And some days you're just, you just kind of feel very strange that, you're still doing your job and you're still in communication with, a few people that you're in communication with every day. And, I think the difference is, with Morley, like we talk every, 1 to 2 weeks, sometimes sooner. And, we do text here and there. And this is like one of the first times I've seen him since we've, been in this lockdown, isolation thing. Reed Wilkins, who I work on Inside Sports with on 6:30 CHED, I talk to him every day. I haven't seen him since March the 13th. So that's strange. But, what's pretty cool about this whole scenario is the technology in our industry, and I think the technology period in the world. I mean, who knew about Zoom before this all hit? I mean, I didn't know it. I mean, your Zoom meeting, I have no idea what that is, Zoom.
Yes.
That was a car commercial, I thought, Zoom, Zoom, Zoom. But anyway, but, like, Morley can broadcast at home doing sports. I can do the same now. And I can do almost everything I can do at work at home. And that being said, I really want to go back to work when it's time. But, the technology has advanced so much where we can do this. And that's what's pretty impressive. So, but, you just roll with the punches and, that treadmill keeps on going and hopefully it'll hit stop soon.
Yeah,
two more things for me. Dave and I are the last people who should be talking at all about a treadmill, because come on, let's be honest. And second is, I'm looking forward to going back to work because it's a lot farther away from my refrigerator.
Oh no!
Yeah,
amen, brother.
Yeah, I said that to somebody the other day. I think when COVID-19, they mean the 19 is how much you gain, right? And
that's the line
month?
I heard.
Per month?
I heard that line, freshman 15. Well, this is the COVID-19.
This I'm feeling that right about now. Yeah. Now, Morley, you were talking about you have the new radio gig, of course, in the mornings. But you also, since this all started, became a grandpa. So congratulations, and tell us all about Milo, because he's awesome.
Yeah, he is. It's been tough to get to know him through all this. He was born on March the 9th. Which was a Monday, and the following Saturday we had a little get-together at our house, and that was the last time I held him. Wow. Since then, it's been 6 feet apart, and it's been FaceTime. And we're slowly moving a little bit towards getting the families together again, like everybody else is doing a bit of. But it's been tough for sure. We've been, my son and his wife have been great, sending us lots of pictures and spending some time on FaceTime, seeing him. So he's already grown so much, and he's starting to develop a little personality now and starting to laugh at things a little bit now. So yeah, it's been a pretty awesome experience for sure. And I feel bad for the little kid because he's going to get so many hugs and kisses when it's all over from all his relatives, because he's basically only been held by his mom and his dad since he was 1 week old. So he's in for a lot of loving at some point.
That sounds like what I say to everybody when I see them. When this is all over, you better be prepared. There's a lot of hugs coming out. Yeah.
On that note, I kind of worry about football, because football's a hugging sport.
It is.
And if you're supposed to social distance, it's going to be tough for a lot of football players, because every handshake ends in a hug, it seems, with a lot of football players. So it's going to be interesting to see how things move forward in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Kayla, I don't want to steal your thunder. You had a question you wanted to ask the boys about being in quarantine.
Did I?
Yeah, I wrote it down even on your paper. Do you have your paper? I just didn't color it purple for you, so you go ahead.
All good. So we're treading the mill, so to say, is a hobby, I guess you could say. But have you picked up any new hobbies during quarantine?
For me, I've done more cooking. I've spent more time making suppers, because it just worked out that way. I really enjoy cooking, so it's been a lot of fun. Watched a lot of movies, which I don't normally do at home. I do normally watch a lot of Netflix and Crave and stuff like that, and I'd say I've probably watched more than normal. So nothing really out of the ordinary for me, just doing a little more of the things that I enjoy doing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd probably just say, I like barbecuing, so I've been doing a lot more of that lately, and just trying to experiment a little bit more with different things. But other than that, it's been pretty run of the mill.
Run of the treadmill, or
yeah.
Been practicing the social distance from the fridge, not working.
Yeah,
So what you're saying is you guys need to cook us dinner since you're getting all skilled up.
Need to? No. Want to. Maybe we can arrange that.
There we go.
That's awesome. Now, okay, so we talked about missing work and all these other things. Of course, we're all missing football, but is there a part of it that you're kind of missing the most?
Oh boy, that's a long list. I think Morley would agree.
I know it is. It is probably for all of us. But is there one thing that you're just like, I like when the time comes, I want to do this?
Just miss the routine of prep. I just miss the routine of going to practices, talking to players and coaches. Morley and I strategizing what we're going to do, for a pregame show and what to watch for. I miss prepping in the morning, prepping at night, watching video, watching film. The CFL came out with a few years ago a media video database,
nice.
which basically gives you individual. You can either watch full games or you could have individual cuts of plays. Well, this year they added the all 24. They added the coaches film. So I was so excited to watch that.
Oh man!
So I've become more of a video junkie over the last 3 years. So I miss the anxiousness, the nervousness, the excitement of game day, and it's there's a lot you miss. There's a lot you miss. You miss the competition. You miss watching 60 minutes of football when a team is just going through every single emotion, it feels like, and the struggle to win a football game, and it doesn't always work out, and a lot of times it does. So, I miss the camaraderie. There's just it's a long list of things that I miss about not having football right now.
The game, of course, is what I miss most because the game is what it's all about, game day and everything else. I love game day, but I miss practice. I miss being at practice and just me, Dave, and Jerry, Mata John from post meeting usually sit up in the booth, and we're either cutting each other up or cutting somebody else up as we sit up there. And then I miss going down on the field and talking with players after practice and hearing some stories and finding out stuff that we would use in the broadcast. Yeah, so I miss practice days. I miss going to practice and just talking. Like I said, it's been so long since I've had a face-to-face conversation with someone who wasn't in my family that I've really begun to miss that. So practice days for me are what's and you get way more practice days than game days. So it's a big part of the routine that I miss.
Yeah, totally get it. Totally. And I was going to say the same thing. For me, it's almost that ramp up, right? Like I know you, Dave, you've talked about this before where day one, you're kind of okay. You see a little bit. Then the next practice, it gets a little more intense and a little more intense. And then we get to game day and it's super exciting, right? So I think that's what I'm finding I'm missing the most because just like every day is the same. So you're kind of waiting for where's the excitement part? and we always got that from football, right? And especially if it's a home game, it means that we're that much closer to a tailgate and hanging out with all of our football family. So I think that's the big thing that I'm missing for sure. So what about you, Mike?
So much. You talk about tailgating. That's definitely part of it that I really miss. Obviously doing the podcast week after week as opposed to every couple of weeks and just sitting around and getting to talk football and talking about new things, right? Like talking about how great this was or how terrible that was or what we really want to see in the following week. Talk about some of the great plays. What was our favorite play? What was our least favorite play? It just, I love watching older games, but watching the newer games when you don't know what's going to happen it's exciting, right? It's the whole thing. Like we have the whole family gets together for tailgate. So, Jedi and Thomas and I will get out and, get the stuff unpacked and start firing up the tacos in a bag or the mini meatball subs or the barbecue pizzas or whatever. The tailgate poutine.
And now we're all hungry again. Yeah.
Hey, Mike. You had me at tacos in a bag.
Oh, it's not a coincidence that it always seemed to be the live spot with the 630 Chad when we had tacos in a bag.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well. Yeah.
You think it's a coincidence?
No, I sure don't. But I just love that, right? And then, of course, game day itself, we'd have the TV set up for the early game or maybe an old game and just getting to see all of our football family. But it's just the interaction one-on-one. Like it's great doing the Skype meetings and everything else, but being able to just wander over and talk to different people and hugging everybody and sharing some food and some drinks and everything else, you just can't beat it.
Absolutely. Commissioner?
There's nothing I can't think of anything that I don't miss. I'd rather have a loss than this. I'd rather have any football than nothing at all. This is getting real tough. By now I'm usually planning on a CFL road trip, and that's not going to obviously happen this year. Labor Day, that's going to be a tough one. Even though we always lose, it's probably one of the funnest games, if not the funnest game, to go down there with a bunch of people and just take it all in. And you kind of go in with the expectation of losing anyway, so it's kind of just a fun game to kind of go in there and cause some havoc and maybe make a little Stamps fans angry. It's fun. It's just
they're always angry.
That's true. I mean, they're red for a reason, right? But there's nothing I don't miss, and those things that kind of were maybe pet peeves of mine, like driving to the game and in traffic and stuff like that. It's like I miss that. That's weird, but I miss it. I'd rather have those little inconveniences than nothing at all.
Totally get it. So we talked a bit out on the YouTube Live, but and obviously there's a ton of factors, but just your gut feeling, do you think we get that shortened season later in the year?
That is a very difficult question to answer.
I know. I just want to know what you think, if you think it'll happen or not.
Well, I thought about this going into this season when the pandemic started. And when the pandemic started, we had 2 months away from training camp, and then training camps got canceled. And then not too long after that, the start of the season got canceled to July. And I mean, we're not going to have a season until, if we have a season, it's not going to be until September. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking, look at last season. Like, we were all freaking out because we'd lose half a preseason in one game because of the CBA.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that the two sides, the league and the players could control. And eventually we had, a full season and it was fine. You can't control a virus. You can't control COVID-19.
Right.
And it's wiped out so many things, and it's affected our lives in so many ways. It's affected sports in so many ways. A lot of it is going to depend on what the virus is like in 6 weeks, 2 months, 2.5, 3 months. When Randy Ambrosi appeared in front of the House of Commons Finance Committee asking for the federal assistance, he said, what was his line again? The most likely scenario is a canceled season. Our best case scenario is a shortened season. Mm-hmm. I believe sitting here, the most likely scenario is a canceled season. However, the best case scenario is making a big charge. I know that for a fact. Yeah. But there's just so many things to get to, and they got to get to it quick.
Yeah.
And they can't wait around much longer. And there's lots to consider. There's the health and safety, which has to be negotiated with every single government, every single health authority. You need a COVID CBA. I mean, the salaries, you might as well just hit the, powder keg the whole darn thing, because the contracts are in a mess right now. There's the border issue. And right now, and I know people have been saying, well, they have visas, they can come up. No, they can't. A visa doesn't get you up here. CFL players are right now, athletes in Canada are considered non-essential, unlike the States when they are considered essential, so they can cross.
Yeah.
There's what about this federal assistance? What does that look like? And I don't think it's going to be a bailout, because I don't think the government wants to do that. I do think they want to help the players, though, and make sure that they're going to be okay. But I do think you have 9 teams that have to rethink the model. You have a commissioner that has to rethink the model, and that's tough. But I think right now in the immediate is, how do you get on the field in 2020? And I think they're going to work darn hard at it, and they're going to give it their best shot. And if it doesn't work, then it's not for a lack of try. But I will say this, they got to get going, and they got to get going soon.
Yeah, they have to. They got to make a decision pretty soon. And if they don't play in 2020, it's not going to be for lack of trying. I know they're exhausting every possible plan that they can think of, whether it be hub cities or whether it be the adopted team format or whatever the case may be. They're trying and thinking about everything. And that's the best part about it from a fan's perspective, is you got to know the CFL's trying. They're doing whatever they can. They're in such a tough spot, though, with not being able to have fans in the stands, if that's going to be the case. And it looks like that's what it's going to be going forward, that there's going to be no fans allowed into the games. And if there is, it would certainly be minimal. And, that's where the CFL makes their money. That's their budget is really keyed on. They get good TV money, but they make their money from butts in the seats. And with playing a model without butts in the seats and without ticket revenue is a pretty tough model to have any success in. But you also have to make the point and say to yourself, we still have to be in the market. We still have to have some kind of presence. So they couldn't play a full season, maybe without fans in the stands. Maybe they can play a half season. Maybe they can get 8 games in and go from there. But I think it's pretty important for them to try and play this year, just to stay in the marketplace, just to make sure their fans know they're still around, because it's out of sight, out of mind. And if you miss a year, it's going to be awful hard to come back the next year. I personally don't think the CFL, if they miss the season, will be in danger of folding or not coming back. I think they're a strong product. They're loved across the country. I think if they do cancel 2020, once they get firm plans in place to come back in 2021, I think the people will be there. I think the people will watch the games again, will come to the games again, and there will be some excitement. And I think that will be especially the case with the diehards, they really obviously love it and they really miss it. So I don't think it's in danger of going away. Certainly in danger of missing 2020. That's for sure, though.
Well, I mean, that's interesting. Like Dave brought up the time when the Commissioner Ambrosi went to the government, basically asking for money. Do you think we're going to see any kind of relief from the government?
I don't think there'll be a bailout of sorts, for lack of a better word. I think that they're going to encourage the CFL, and I'm sure CFL employees have already taken advantage of the programs that the government has in place for those unemployed. The players starting next week can, because Thursday is supposed to be the first game, so players miss their first paycheck starting this weekend. So they'll be able to get some government assistance going forward as well. So that's going to help. But what they're not going to get, I don't think, is $50 million to split up 9 ways. I don't think, or whatever amount you want to put on it. I don't think that's going to happen. They may get some assistance through government programs, but that big check's not coming from the government to support the CFL. So they're going to have to figure out a way to do it themselves. And I think they've kind of moved on from that. And in hearing and talking with Randy Ambrosi, I think he's realized that they're not going to get the big check, and they've got to move on and figure it out. And as he said, when I talked to him, they got to have the CFL 3.0 now going forward. Yeah. They got to take the next step. And I don't know if reinvent their business model is the proper phrase, but they certainly have to do a few things differently, and they have to do a few things better as they go forward, whether they play in 2020 or not.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely for us. Do you have a drop-dead date in mind, or is that something that we've heard?
If you just do simple math, right? Let's say they want to play Labor Day, so let's call it the 1st of September. So you got to have at least
training camp,
a week to 10 days of training camp. And you got to have, maybe you're going to have 14 days before that of quarantine for players. Sure. So just do the math. And how the NHL solves their problem, if they were able to do their hub city plan in one of the Canadian cities, they're obviously going to get around the 14-day period somehow. Maybe the CFL has to learn a lesson from that and figure out a way that they can maybe have the quarantine 14 days, but also have that as part of training camp before they go into playing games. So I would think that, so let's say that takes us to the middle of August, right? And if you need 14 days, that takes us to the beginning of August. But let's say the middle of August, you got to make hotel reservations. You got to make meal plans. You got to get planes chartered. There's a lot of work that guys spend 6 months doing that they did, and they're going to have to do all over again for a different schedule. Right. And teams don't even know the schedule. I was actually talking to Scott Milanovich today, and he said that his staff is busy breaking down every team and to be prepared to play every team in the league. And he knows that they might not play some teams, but he knows that they're going to get, if they play, they're going to get 8 games, they're going to get 10 games, and they have to still be ready. So, usually teams prepare for teams. They look at the schedule and go, okay, let's do our work for BC because we've got them, week 1. Then let's do our work for this team, and they get their book built for the season. But they don't know who they're playing. They don't know when they're playing. They don't know who they're playing. So it's a lot more work that the coaching staff is putting in right now to be ready to play.
I would add a couple things here too. I think you got to watch. We're coming up to another border deadline. It's June 21st. So does that get extended for another 30 days? If it doesn't, or if there's exemptions for the CFL and the NHL, or just, non-essential workers are able to come over, then that gives the league a ton of wiggle room to go ahead and plan a season. And if you don't, then you got to wait till July 21st. And if it opens, okay, the window's tighter, but it gives you time. And if it doesn't, you're in big trouble, I think. You're in real big trouble unless you get the exemption. So, and the other thing, too, is this virus has changed almost daily, and we have been surprised. We've been surprised the not so good way. We've been surprised the good way. I mean, tonight the WHO, World Health Organization, said their findings now that asymptomatic people don't spread the virus, or it's a low risk.
Right. Yeah.
That would change the quarantine, I would think. Would you have to quarantine for 14 days if you're asymptomatic? So this is changing. And this is why I give the shortened season a shot here, a big shot, or a chance to give a big swing, because this has changed so much, more than I think we've thought. And give science, give the doctors, give the experts in this field the chance to work, and we'll see what happens. So, but Morley's right. I mean, there's some, you just take your start date and you start backing up. And if you're going to start a training camp on the middle of August, then you got to back up. Right. And then, and how far can you give yourself of runway to make sure you have a chance to get a season going? So, but the border is one thing. The findings about the virus is another thing. And, those are two factors, especially the latter, because, this has changed, I think, more than we ever thought it would.
So I have a question about training camp quickly. What would be the minimal amount of time in training camp? Like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? What could they squeeze that? 2?
I think 2. Maybe you do play one exhibition game. Maybe you just have an inter-squad game. Maybe you agree that you can, let's have a practice against the Stampeders and make it a scrimmage. I'm just throwing out, a team. Right. But I would say, probably, let's say 2 to 2.5 weeks is probably the longest you could go.
Right. Okay. So if there is a season, is it basically round robin or stay in your division? What do you guys think?
That's interesting because, I think 8 would be cool because it would be a round robin.
Yeah.
But what if the league, I know they have the win and host Grey Cup model, but what if they say, screw it, we're going to go right into December. So maybe we could get another 2-3 games in, and then we'll just pick BC Place and we'll play the game there. Right? Mm-hmm. I don't think that's an out of line possibility or out of this world possibility, because I don't think they're going to come out and say it, but I think there is, I got this feeling that the league is experimenting big, or really thinking about going into December and play the Grey Cup so they can get more regular season games in. And if it means you can get more fans in the stadium, great. But of course that all has to be figured out. But I would not be surprised if the league does push the Grey Cup game into December.
A CFL Christmas? That's like a dream come true.
Or Hanukkah. I don't know.
And so, are there any thoughts on hub cities? 1, 2 more? What do you guys think?
There's been so much talk about Winnipeg and Regina being hub cities. I don't know why you can't throw Edmonton into that mix as well. Alberta and Edmonton have done so well with flattening the curve and protecting people. So I think there's an opportunity. You could play games in all 3 cities. I mean, you could, if you want to, you could bus to all 3 cities. It's kind of long, but I mean, you could go Edmonton, Regina, play in Regina, then go to Winnipeg, play in Winnipeg, right? So if you can get all 9 teams in 3 cities or 2 cities, it might work. But again, then you got the housing issue. That's a pretty big financial hit to house 50 players per team, plus staff, plus coaches, plus, everybody else that's involved in the support staff. Not only you got to house them, you got to feed them for long periods of time. So that's tough. There's also that adopted team plan that's been out there too, where the four or five Western teams, I guess it would only be 4, adopt an Eastern team. So let's just say Toronto comes to Edmonton and they work in tandem with the Eskimos, and they don't practice with them, but they use Commonwealth Commonwealth Stadium, and they practice it. One team practices in the morning, one team practices at night. It gets all 9 teams in Western Canada, where virus-wise, we're much better off than they are in Ontario and Quebec. So that might be a good move too, to have all the games played in the West, as opposed to just 2 hub cities. Maybe you can involve all the teams and get everybody. And maybe it comes to a point. Maybe by September you can have 5,000 people in the stands to watch a game.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can spread people out in Commonwealth Stadium and spread them out in Regina and Calgary and get a little revenue off it. I don't think that can happen in Eastern Canada, because I don't think they're going to be that far along because of the numbers that they're still getting.
Yes. But
maybe it can happen in Western Canada. And honestly, guys, let's face it. Nobody knows.
Yeah,
nobody knows, right?
No,
I mean,
right.
you can say whatever you want to say, and Randy Ambrosi can say whatever he wants to say, and the CFLPA can say whatever they want to say, and we can do it here, but nobody knows. Nobody knows how this is going to end. I mean, for goodness sakes, you went 2.5 months before you could go get a haircut, for goodness sakes. So, nobody knows how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. I think we've said this for the last 3 months. It changes every day. So you can't really, put any,
and the worst part about that is there's so much planning that has to be done so far ahead in the future. And with everything changing every day, it makes your future plans not really worth much, right? And that's a problem that they're going to run into, and that's why I think that drop dead date is going to be maybe a lot earlier than everyone thinks it could be. Maybe it's going to be in early July or something like that, because there's so much work that has to be done in advance of playing games come September.
My thought was actually, Dave, you said this earlier, how if the ban doesn't get lifted on June 21st and they have to wait till July 21st. In my mind, the drop dead date was July 22nd. If that doesn't get lifted, then they may not be able to go. Right. So that's where I've kind of been housing that in my head as a backup. But on the other side of that, I'm thinking, that's at least 6 or 7 weeks away. So much can change in that period of time.
Sure.
That who knows, right? So I've had a couple of wild ideas thrown at me as far as different season things. I know some I've heard people say wait until like February of next year and then play 2 8-game seasons, which was bizarre. I think that's a lot of just play 1 16 and let it be done. But the other one that I heard, now this is a really wild one, but just because they want to try and pack in some games, right? Now that's assuming they can have, like you said, 5,000 people or whatever. What about if they, instead of playing a 60-minute game, they only played a 30-minute game, but the whole game was fourth quarter rules?
Why? Because
then you could play one game on Friday and then you could play again on Wednesday.
No, that's not going to happen.
That's what I thought too, but
the Players
it was given to me as an Empire question, so I'm asking.
Yeah.
Why doesn't the NHL use 15-minute periods with continuous time? Like, come on,
right?
Like, no, we're not gonna do that.
You still got to keep it football. Still got to be football, right?
Right. Okay. Good. That I'm just throwing it out there.
But not only that, but
rejected.
If you're going to get hit in that, especially if you're a lineman or whatever else, and taking the kind of abuse, 3 days later you're not ready to play again, even if it's only a 30-minute game.
Yeah, and that's going to take a lot of players out of games, because you get those little nicks that you can play in a week, but you can't play in 3 days.
Right.
So I think a lot of star players get taken out of games that way, and nobody wants that.
So then let me ask you this then, because they're going to possibly go with like a round robin type thing with a very shortened preseason, or not even preseason, more likely just a training camp. Do you think that they will expand the practice rosters right off the top so that you have guys, so if somebody gets injured, you don't have to worry about quarantining a guy before he's got to come into play?
I think you're going to have to do that, yeah. If you think about how many times you see players parachuted in, and Dave, we see it all the time. A guy comes in, there's somebody's nicked up that we don't know about, and then all of a sudden a defensive lineman comes in, and he practices on Monday and Tuesday, and on Wednesday the injured guy says, I can go, then that player's released and he's gone, right? The guy who came in to possibly replace him. And you just don't have you might not have the time with the quarantine period, if it's still in place, whether it be 14 days or if they reduce it or whatever the case is. I think you're going to have a bigger practice roster and more players available. I could even see, this just came to me now, I could even see a pool of players that are housed somewhere and are working out, and if you need a D lineman, you can go out and say, I want this guy. And it's there for the whole league to take, right? So maybe you don't expand your practice rosters, but you have a group of guys who are there and ready to play for whatever team needs them at whatever time during the season. That's kind of crazy.
I was just going to say that. I was going to say, so basically the league pre-practice roster. Yeah, that's what you're...
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So
it's kind of crazy,
the first, second, or third house.
It might work.
First, second, or third house. Nice job, Dave.
Just crazy enough to work, too.
I don't know. No one wrote it down. Which damn house is the dude in?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
And then...
Make it a reality show.
That's what I was just going to say.
Big Brother.
Oh, yeah. That'd be great.
CFL. Perfect. Yeah. That'd be great.
That'd be great. Halftime shows would all be like a Big Brother style from that house.
Instead of getting voted out of the house, you're voted to a team.
Yeah, and then all the guys are sitting around watching the game, going, "Oh man, I'm better than that guy."
I'd watch that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh, I'm sorry, you got kicked out of the house. You have to go play on Toronto. That's how this. It's like, wait a second, what? Wait, what happened here? Yeah, that's crazy. All right, well, let's take a really quick break, and then we will come back with our all-new football movie bracket, but a little bit more on the team we love, the Esks.
This is Kabir Ansari, and you guys are definitely listening to the Eskimo Empire Podcast. Enjoy.
You can join the Empire online.
Find us at eskempire.ca.
Check out all the new blogs and then follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
For more history, follow @Esks History on Twitter.
And even more of my pics on Esk Empire Photo.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to help the pod grow. Thanks again for listening. Let's get back to the show. This episode is also brought to you by Pod Power. With Pod Power, ATB is making it possible for us to amplify the voices of Albertans and Alberta podcasters. This episode, we're giving a Pod Power shout out to That's Food, a new podcast from CJSR, Edmonton's campus and community radio station. That's Food explores the backstory of food in Edmonton, one meal at a time, which, I mean, we're all excited about. We were all talking about getting close to the fridge. It's handmade with love by University of Alberta students, and if you're stuck at home and running out of ideas about what to cook, they're releasing new stories about some of their favorite quarantine recipes. You can listen to That's Food on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts, but you can also find it at that'sfood.transistor.fm. That's food.transistor.fm.
Sounds awesome.
I know. I was really excited about it. I'm like, wow, quarantine foods. Great. I'm going to try some new ones. This is outstanding. So let's talk a little bit about the Esks. If we do get a chance to play, surprisingly, we did have a transaction to talk about this week. So
we did.
That was always exciting. They signed another running back in Marvin Kinsey, and released defensive back McKinley Whitfield. McKinley, we hardly knew ye.
Yeah, just going to say, I was going to get his jersey.
That's what I thought was going to happen. Well, I know there was another running back.
He didn't even get his jersey. What are you talking about?
I wasn't sure what number to put on it, but
110. That's what we were going with. Another running back, though, so I know Mike was excited because that's...
I was very excited.
The more running backs there are, the more likely there is of a wishbone. So I know how
his clips look great.
Yeah, he does look like he's got some speed there. So, so I know it was the last time that we actually talked to you guys was, or I talked to you guys was when they announced the coaching staff. So let's talk a little bit. We got into free agency and had all that kind of fun and games. What did you think about some of the team's moves? Getting Justin Tuggle in and those types of things.
Well, I think you saw Brock Sunderland just quickly address the needs on his football team. He wanted Larry Dean back. They just couldn't agree on the dollars, and it was a weird free agency because the stars got paid, the minimum salary went up $11,000, and it squeezed the middle class just big time crunching. Some aren't even signed yet. I mean, who knew that Darrell Walker was going to be sitting here doing nothing at this point?
Right.
But
Wow.
I think it was just restock the cupboard, and Justin Tuggle is a good restock. I think I don't think he's as good as Larry Dean, but I don't think he's that bad either. Jonathan Mincy was interesting to me just because we haven't seen him a lot over the last few years, but when he played really well. So that was interesting. And then I look at what Rock Sunderland did after free agency, signing Jimmy Ralph, signing Rodney Smith, signing Armani Edwards. I really like those moves. I'm a big fan of Armani Edwards because he's a tactician. He's an excellent route runner. Rodney Smith is just the 6'5", big time catch radius. I love that. Jimmy Ralph is interesting because he's just to go, throw the ball in the dirt and he'll get it for you, right? And they just have an abundance of Canadian receivers. But to me, the X factor is Scott Milanovich and the coaching staff, because I look at this roster and I go, I don't know if this is a better roster than last season, but I don't think they're that bad. Mm-hmm. And I think the coaching staff might help them win 3 more games. To me, Noel Thorpe's impact on the defense, Scott Milanovich's impact on the offense, I just want to see if they can take the defense to another level, and especially Noel Thorpe with the defense, because I think the defense took maybe a notch back from last season, from after free agency. Mm-hmm. But I do think overall it's a capable roster.
Yeah, I'm with Dave on that. And you mentioned, Dave, the fact that the talent level might not be what it was last year, but last year's team was 8-10, right? They should have been better than that, right? And I don't want to blame that all on the coaching staff. In fact, I'm not going to blame it on the coaching staff. There's some guys who underachieved and didn't play as well as they could. So you don't have to have the star-studded lineup to have a good record. You have to be a good team. And I think the Eskimos maybe are going to try and take that route this season, if indeed they do play, that they're going to try and be just a better team, not have better players, but be a better team. I mean, last year, Brock Sunderland, he gets 5 stars for what he pulled off last year in free agency. It did not work out for him because of injuries to several guys, and I mean, we never even saw Sir Vincent Rogers in a game, right? Yeah. A lot of guys, we didn't see Jovan Santos Knox till the end of the season. And I mean, honestly, if the guys who they signed would have played, they wouldn't have been an 8-10 team, I don't think, at all. So there is that to it. As far as he stole the show at free agency last year. This year, he survived free agency. He filled the holes he had to fill, and then went out the next couple of weeks, and as Dave mentioned, got some pretty impactful guys, some guys that, maybe people were saying, oh yeah, I forgot about him. Oh yeah, he was the guy, he was a big tall guy in Toronto, mm-hmm. guys like Rodney Smith and Armani Edwards. And I think that they'll both have pretty big impacts when they get to play this year. And don't forget, I believe Trevor Harris makes every receiver better just because of the way he throws the ball, the accuracy in which he throws the ball. So if you can run a route and catch a ball, you got a chance of having a good season with Trevor Harris as your quarterback.
Yeah, I would agree, and I liked that they've brought in a whole bunch of DBs too to try and find those guys that can blend on the backside. I mean, a lot of Toronto guys, but I'm excited that they brought in other guys. When you said Mincy there earlier, Dave, the one thing that went through my head with that is, remember when we signed Pat Watkins and we all thought, well, he was all right before, and then all of a sudden he hit this new level. I'm wondering if that's kind of the same story that could happen here.
Yeah, it could, and Mincy he's just an athletic freak at his peak, right? And he's a bit undersized for a DB, but I think he covers well in space. He attacks the football. I think he's kind of one of those guys that just sticks to a receiver. Or even if you give him a little bit of a bubble, he's able to close it quickly. So, I still look at this team, and Morley, I've said this for years. The weakness of this team is their secondary, and I still think the weakness of this team is their secondary. But that being said, Brock did what he had to do, and he had to fill holes, right? And I want to talk about the offense just quickly again, if I can. I think another X factor is in that running back stable. Shaq Cooper's going to get a chance.
Yep.
Shaq Cooper's going to get a chance, and I think he can change a game. They brought Jordan Robinson back. Brandon Burks is in the fold, and there's others as well. There's going to be a tandem, I believe. Could you see 3 running backs on the roster, and one of them is a receiver, like we saw with Kendall Lawrence for a couple seasons here?
Ooh.
I think it's a possibility because I think 1 or 2 of those running backs could return as well, especially Jordan Robinson. But I think you look at what Milanovic has done in the past, converts Andre Dury to a receiver. We saw what he did with Anthony Coombs. We saw what he did with Chad Cackert when he was healthy. He likes to use running backs out of the backfield a lot, not just to run, but to catch the football and to give different looks and become a matchup nightmare for linebackers.
My nominee for that spot would be Terry Williams, who was so good returning footballs in Calgary last year, and he wasn't a returner. He never returned until he got to the CFL, and they had to get him on the roster, so they made him a returner. He's a guy who's going to come to camp with a bit of a chip on his shoulder because he wants to be an everyday player, something he never got a chance to do in Calgary. He wants to be an everyday player. He wants to be the running back. And if you're going to be a running back with Scott Milanovic, you're going to have to block and you're going to have to be good coming out of the backfield because those are keys in his offense. Obviously, blocking, that's every running back's got to do that no matter which team you play for. But Milanovic loves to swing the guy out of the backfield. And I think Williams will have success with that because he's so good in space and he's so used to breaking tackles as a returner for the last couple of years. So he's a guy I'm really looking forward to seeing how he can add to the team.
I'm looking forward to it because if he does well, then I can go back to Ryan from the Horsemen and say, haha, Scary Terry is ours now. That's right. Because anytime that happens, it's a good day. Now let's move ahead a little bit. What are your thoughts on the draft and how the Esks did in the draft? Because they picked some guys that we were a little, who's that? Like Alain Pay. But the more that I've read and watched, I'm like, okay, I can see where this pick might have happened. So, but what did you think about the draft?
I think it's a no-brainer with the first pick. And I know Carter O'Donnell from the U of A got a lot of consideration, but I think the signing bonus that he signed in the NFL kind of took him down the draft board. So when you draft Tomas Jack Cordelia, what he lacks in the physical department, he's just a great technician, and he can come in and play guard right away. He might be able to play center, but you can't go wrong with that pick, really. I mean, that was a really good job by Brock Sunderland. Alain Pay is, he had one good year. I mean, you got to, when you're in a defensive line position and you get 26.5 tackles, that's pretty impressive. But when you haven't played for that long, why does that merit a second round pick? Now that's just me talking. That's just me. I'm not in the draft room. I'm not scouting him, but it just, just going back to draft history, that's a draft pick that's going to have to really step up. And then, Dante Brown was interesting because you do have your place kicker in Sean White, who's still very good, but he is pushing 35. Hugh O'Neill has had some injury issues last season with the knee, so you wonder about that. The guy's got a big leg. He's not Warren Keane. He's a legit kicker. He's got a big leg. Can he directional kick here in this league? He'll have to learn that. The pick I love the most is Chris Garbarosa out of Wagner.
Yes.
How he fell to the 6th round. That's a steal and a half. Or Garbarosa, sorry. That's a steal. Big guy, physical, can run block well to tackle spot, which you don't always get. Good pass pro lineman, and now he hasn't played up here, so he's got to work on his feet. But I love that pick. So it wasn't a spectacular draft like it was in 2017, but I thought that he filled some needs on special teams, and he might have a steal in a 6th round pick on the O-line, and you picked a surefire O-lineman that should be able to fill in pretty well with Jack Cordilla down the road.
I'm like Dave, pretty much agree with everything he said. Jack Cordilla is a good pick, and the thing that I liked hearing about him most is he's pro ready. So he's not a guy you're going to have to, have around on the practice roster for a year or two before he can step into the lineup. He looks like he's a guy who can, if for example, if Kyle Saxlett is going to step up and be a starter this year, maybe take over where Travis Bond was, then he can move into that spot where Kyle Saxlett was kind of the sixth guy. He can get some time on some plays and get involved a little bit. So that's the best thing that I think from him is that he's a pro ready, as they say, and he's ready to play. So that'll be kind of cool. Pay is an interesting pick to me. I'm really looking forward to finding out more about this guy when he gets here, because he's got an interesting background, having played in the Czech Republic and a little bit 1 year in youth sports to play. So he's a guy who I think has a chance to be one of those players who goes, wow. I mean, and Brock said after the draft that because of COVID, NFL teams were kind of scared away from offering him a deal. Because he didn't know how big camps are going to be and stuff like that. But he said he was a guy who, despite the fact he hasn't played in a while and hasn't played a lot, he was getting some NFL interest, not in the draft, but as the possibility of being signed as a free agent or at least getting a tryout. That's not going to happen now for him, and he's going to come to Edmonton, and I'm interested to see how he can perform.
Well, didn't Ottawa try to sign him last year or try to hope to draft him at the beginning of the year as a global player?
I believe that, that's a story I heard, right? And I'm not sure if and then he was opted out of the global player because he was going to be eligible for the Canadian draft, right?
And we didn't have a global draft,
how the story goes.
He actually competed at the Ontario Regional Combine on March 12th when the crap hit the fan with the pandemic and sports were just shutting down. And he was able to compete a little bit at that combine. And he wanted to enter the draft as a global player, but the pandemic hit, couldn't do that. But then they found out you can actually enter as a Canadian. So that's the story there. So, but measurables, you can't argue. I mean, he's what, 6'4", 240, and he can move well. Yeah. It's just, as for a second round pick, could you have got him later in the draft? Like, that's just my question. But if he can bring those measurables onto the field and he can play clearly, but it's just he hasn't played for a while. But I'm with Morley. That's a very gutsy, interesting pick, and the story of Elaine Pay is a very good one.
Well, I wonder
risk and reward for sure.
Yeah, yep. And I wonder. I remember last year when we were all sitting in that room for the draft, and he picked Kyle Saxlett in the second round, and we all went, "Really?"
What the hell?
Yeah. So I've learned from that point that it's like, well, second round, Brock knows it's good. We'll let that happen.
You guys avoided the fourth round.
Interesting thing you said there when you said Brock knows. I went back and I looked at and I have my chicken scratch in front of me here, but I went back and I looked at the drafts that Brock Sunderland has been in charge of since he became general manager of the Eskimos. He hasn't had many misses. He hasn't had many misses whatsoever. I mean, there have been years in Eskimo history where nobody plays, right? But Brock Sutherland's picks so far, almost everybody plays, if not for the Eskimos, in the CFL at some point, which is a different story. Identifying talent and drafting them, I don't think there's anybody that can compare with the draft that the Eskimos have had the last 3 years. I know some guys aren't around now, but they got a couple of good years out of Nate Bahar. They got a couple of good years out of Mark Mackey. Bahar's still unsigned. Mackey has retired now to go to medical school. But, I mean, if you go back, just look at 2017 in order. Nate Bahar, J.S. Waugh, Malumba Shimanga, Hoover, Senior, Boateng, Asare, and Mackey. I know some of them aren't here anymore, but that's a pretty good haul. That's a pretty good haul from one draft year.
Even last year. I mean, outside of Eric Blake, everybody made this team.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, at some point or another.
I mean, it's a dominant draft.
And who was the round 4 one that we missed then, Mike?
Well, that's the thing is I haven't heard either of you guys talk about the fourth round pick, mostly because I'm not sure how to pronounce his name.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm good.
Akatepe?
It's pronounced just like it's spelt. Come on.
Oh, okay. Good.
Perfect. Okay, well, we'll be learning
He's
that.
He's got to have a nickname.
I was actually thinking about names this last week when we heard so much about Amen Ogbogbamiga.
Yes.
And his positive test playing in Oklahoma. And I think it was his brother or cousin or somebody who briefly had a cup of coffee with the Eskimos in Alex Ogbogbamiga. Yeah. So I was ready to rip that name out last week for sure without much rehearsal. The thing I remember about Alex Ogbongbemiga the most is autocorrect on my computer always changed Ogbongbemiga to Toboggan.
Did you ever tell him that?
I did not, actually. I don't think he was around long enough to have many conversations with.
That's a good point. That's a good point. One quick other question just to ask before we get into the movie bracket, but no Canada West football this year. They announced that today. What does that kind of mean for these Canadian players as we're talking about the draft?
Really feel bad. Sorry, Dave. Really feel bad for the graduating guys, right? The guys who were supposed to dominate this year, the guys who are going out to get noticed by scouts and get that game film that they can show everybody, whether, be it for a chance to play in the NFL maybe or for the CFL draft. So I feel terrible for those guys because it's just snuffed out and they're going to have to take a different approach. So it's horrible, for everybody basically, because especially, guys who commit to go to certain universities, and I mean, now to play football, and now you can't. It's tough, and you can't go somewhere else to play football because nobody's playing it. But I feel bad for everybody. I feel bad for the staffs, not just coaching staff, but everybody else in the organization at the youth sports level who work so hard, not just for football, but for all the other sports that have been canceled or that are going to be shortened up to half a season. It's terrible news, really, and I wonder what the effect is going to be over the next 5 years on Canadian content, Canadian Football League, because the draft, these players are going to miss a year of development now, and they're going to get drafted, and they're going to be in a position where they're getting drafted, but most of them won't have played for over a year. I mean, they only play 8 games to start with, so they didn't play a lot of games anyway, but now they haven't played for over a year. So when the group of players who get drafted this year go to training camp in 2021, they're going to be fish out of water because they haven't, been on a football team for a long time.
That combine is going to be huge next year too, right?
Yeah. We had Chris Morris, the Bears head coach, on Inside Sports with Reed Wilkins tonight, and he said the writing was on the wall when the university announced they're going to online classes, because he says without the school fees, which amount to about $450,000. For the U of A, for the Bears, that is, without that money, you can't play. And that's not their only source of fundraising. They have the dinner, their own dinner. They have the 50-50 from the Eskimos as well. It's tough, and it's funny. You compare U Sports to NCAA and just how much of a big business NCAA is. And they're so gung-ho to play because if they don't, they're going to lose revenue. If NCAA Division I football didn't play, they would lose $4 billion. Wow. Okay, if U Sports plays, they would lose a ton of money. So it's better for U Sports not to play this year because they just can't make the money. They don't have any revenue like the NCAA, who has a ton of revenue. They have big TV contracts and sponsorships and so on and so forth. So the 2021 draft is going to be interesting. Like Morley said, and I was talking to a couple of people who do a lot of work with the draft every year, and I said, are you going to have to cut the rounds? And they said, no, there's enough film on everybody that they won't have to do that. But what's going to happen is they're going to fall through the cracks. You might see players that are playing in NCAA or in NAIA in the States, their stock may go up more than normal years, and the U Sports eligible might go down. And then Morley said those that are graduating, like the fifth years, are they going to get another year? Because in football, there's a rule that in youth sports, 25 is the max. Where in other sports, no one will lose their eligibility in youth sports, but they have to figure that out. When the fifth years in football will be able to play if they're, when they're 26. Right. It's just terrible. It's just, and now we need to know what the Canadian junior football will do. Mm-hmm. And this ripple effect is going to be pretty significant. So it's pretty sad. I know Quebec hasn't decided yet what they're going to do, but I think we know where this is going for them as well.
Yeah, I'd agree. Very, very sad to have that happen for sure. So, all right. Well, let's. I don't want to leave on a nasty note. So let's talk about the movie bracket, the football movie bracket that we're putting together. Our new kind of time killer and fun while we kind of wait for football to come back. So we picked 32 of the best known kind of football movies. Well, maybe not known. Some of them, like one of them that's on the list tonight, I have no friggin' clue until Mike told me about it. But anyway, it's lots of good football movies, and we're gonna just have them battle in supremacy. Like I said, some oldies, some well known, some great battles actually, especially even in the first round. The bracket I'm going to post to our social media soon, and then we're going to do 4 battles for the first, 4 shows, because we have all these different teams or movies to go against each other. They are going to go up in Twitter and Facebook polls, and then I will count up votes to see who wins, and then we'll announce the winners on the next show, and then announce the next part of the bracket that we're going to choose from. So this week on Tuesday, our first poll will go up, and I'm just going to say what the movies are. If you want to know what movies we all picked, then jump back to the YouTube live and catch all of us telling you what movies we picked to win. The first one on Tuesday will be Friday Night Lights, which was a 2004 Billy Bob Thornton movie based on a book about a high school state championship run, against Everybody's All-American, which is a 1988 Jessica Lange and Dennis Quaid movie, and it follows the life of a college football hero. Then on Friday, we'll put up the next poll, which is The Comebacks, a 2007 sports parody movie with David Koechner, against Waterboy, 1998 Adam Sandler comedy, which we all know and love, especially because we all love that high-quality H2O. There's the snicker. All right, perfect. I had to get a snicker for the comedy movie. On the following Monday, we will have Invincible from 2006. It follows the real-life story of Vince Papale, I think is how you say it, who played for the Eagles in the late 70s. And Mike, you were just saying on the YouTube there, too, that we believe his son is now part of the Alouettes.
Alouettes, yeah.
Yeah, so even a CFL connection there. It's going to go up against Knute Rockne. Did I say it right this time?
Knute Rockne, All-American.
There you go. 1940 movie starring Ronald Reagan, and is based on a true life story, but that's where I guess in real life they came up with one for the Gipper, and of course in that one Ronald Reagan plays the Gipper.
Plays George Gipp. Yep.
I know. I just had to make it so that you would cringe a little. Okay. Then the Thursday of that week, we will have, this is a big emotional battle one. We Are Marshall from 2006, Matthew McConaughey, based on a true story of a team reassembling after a plane crash kills 37 players from the team and a bunch of the team staff as well. And then how they recover. That one's going up against another tearjerker, which is Brian's Song from 1971. Now, that's a TV movie, and it starred James Caan and Billy D. Williams, so I know that gets a vote from Commissioner right there, just because of Lando. And it's about a player that played for the Chicago Bears that is stricken with cancer, and it's told through the eyes of his teammate. Now, that movie was remade in 2001, so make sure if you wanted to watch these before you're voting that you're watching the one from 71 with James Caan. So the polls will come out during these over the next 2 weeks, and then on the YouTube Live in a couple of weeks we will find out who were the winners, and then we will announce our next bracket.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Sorry, Mike. Are any of these available on any streaming service?
Some of them are for
Some
sure.
of them are.
Yeah, it's amazing how many Disney movies were football movies, so a lot of them are on Disney Plus actually. so
okay,
it's a good place to start.
A good thing I was just going to say is a good person to talk to We Are Marshall about would have been Alex Bazzi, since he went to Marshall.
Yeah, that's very true. Yes,
that would have been very cool to talk to.
I'll have to reach out to Badman Bazzi to give us some information on that. So anyway, follow along. It's our next lots of fun. And Mike, we are going to do the draw for the depth chart winners in 2 weeks' time, yes?
Yeah, just give me a chance to finish off the poster. The poster is almost done. We've also talked about other prizes that are going to be there. There's gift cards. There's a book. There's a few other things in there. So give us a chance to sort of gather it all together in 2 weeks on the YouTube Live. We'll do the draw, and somebody's going to go away some prizes.
Yeah, awesome. And it'll be. I'm excited to see that poster. in a big way. Yeah, it's going to be lots of fun. So, all right. Well, thank you, Dave and Morley. As always, it is amazing to talk to you guys. Morley, extra thanks for staying up when I know you have to get up in a few hours. And
on your anniversary.
Yeah, no kidding. I was just going to say that.
Double whammy.
Happy anniversary, and thank you for finding time for us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure to be on. Thanks for inviting me again. And hang in there. Football's coming back sooner or later. We just all got to be patient. So thanks for having me, and stay safe, everybody.
Thank you. And Dave, as always, thank you for coming as well and joining in with your Captain America behind you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, that's right. Edition 1. Punching out Adolf Hitler. Go punch out coronavirus for us, please. Thank you, Cap.
We would love that.
Well, it's always great to hang out. This is obviously a lot different than how we usually do it. I mean, Kayla's actually here when Morley and I are on, but we can't even be in the same room. So I miss you, Pod Sister.
I was beginning to think there was a restraining order.
I miss all of you, and I know there'll be a time soon when we can all gather in the turf district again. So. But this was a lot of fun as always, so thank you so much, and stay healthy and safe out there. And I'm just going to say, we'll see you in August during training camp. I'm just going to say it.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. I can't wait. I forgot, you guys plug where they can find you to find all of the sports stuff that you're doing and when you're tweeting out stuff about NHL and CFL and all these things.
Yeah, I'm go ahead, Marlon.
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead, Dave.
You should point to someone. Andrew should say, Dave.
You know what? If I point like this, how are you going to know who I'm pointing at?
Well, you have a voice.
I should have said that.
Dave,
yes.
what's your handle?
Do you want me to do that again? Yeah. Dave, what's your handle? Yeah.
Dave_Chet on Twitter. I'm on Instagram at Dave_Campbell630. Morley still hasn't followed me on the gram. And, but hey, I love you anyway, brother.
Is that true?
You haven't.
Is that true?
I think so.
Wow.
I think so.
We'll have to correct that. I'm going to do
You
that.
said that last time.
We'll have to. We've talked about this before.
Yes, on our show when you were here last time. You
Seriously?
Did yes, yes, which is great.
And I'm not on Snapface.
I don't usually pay much attention to the follow button. So, there you go.
Oh.
I just hit follow back just as we speak.
Okay.
Right there.
Where's the mute button now?
I would like to say that we were already following, just so that because I had to put that in there. Anyway, Morley, where does everybody find you?
Morley_Scott on the Tweety box, and Morley_Scott on the IG, as the kids like to say. And that's about it. If I could plug two coming soon, we were supposed to come out last week, but we had some technical issues. But the ePod will return with some episodes coming up this week as well. So there you go. Check wherever you get your ear candy and have a listen to the ePod when it comes out again. So.
Awesome.
That's that.
Awesome. Very excited to have that back. Where do they find you, Commissioner Kayla?
At Duchess Lombardi for my main channel. Is it not a channel? What is it?
Main handle, sure.
Main handle, yes. And my second is at Esks Empire Photo.
Okay. Wow, that was very smooth. Other than the
that's because
okay, you cheated. Okay, good. I was worried. I'm like, how the hell did you know that so quickly? But you just did. Good job.
Yeah, I had it.
Yeah, it was awesome. All right,
thank you.
Super fan.
Apparently, the Sim 81 Eskimos aren't the only ones who cheat. So you can find me at 56 Parkies, and then the history, and definitely tune in a couple of weeks, is at Esks History.
Awesome. And you can find me at Free Policious, of course, the show at Esk Empire Pod. We'll do our regular shout-outs to Pay It Forward with Football on Facebook and Twitter. And, of course, they are doing the Where is Trevor videos, they're awesome. So check that out. And, of course, check out our good friend Justin Renfro Sports. All the hoodies and masks and things. He's doing a bunch of stuff there that is now helping to support Black Lives Matter. And you can find find that at renfrofootball.com and, of course, on his Instagram as well. I said it on the YouTube Live. Lots of great shows coming out from the CFPN these days, so catch up with those at the cfpodnetwork.ca. And, of course, make sure you check out all of the great shows on the Alberta Podcast Network at albertapodcastnetwork.com. And find all of our social channels on eskempire.ca. We'll do another quick shout out too to Joe Pritchard for helping to set up this Cold Snap League, which has given us lots of fun in our spare time trying to roll dice and see which Eskimos team prevails. And as long as the 81 team stops cheating, it'll go really well. And maybe I'll have a quarterback for a full game. That would be great.
Maybe.
Yeah, possibly. Anyway, we will be back in 2 weeks with hopefully another exciting guest, but definitely the draw and the football movie bracket. So make sure you stay safe out there. Wash your hands. For Dave, Morley, Commissioner Kayla, and Superfan Mike, I'm Andrew. Remember, you can't catch footballs with your face, and we will absolutely talk to you in 2 weeks.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.